am Chantel Dooley. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, where we're waiting for snow on Sunday. If you've never used GoToMeeting before, please take a minute and hover your mouse or your cursor over your web page and see if you can find and locate your microphone and your webcam. And if you're not camera ready yet, just put a little post-it note over your camera and you can still play with it and make sure you know how to turn it on and turn it off. But we are going to be looking for your input as we go through this webinar series. So just take a minute and familiarize yourself. Feel free to unmute and say hello. And then Matthew, would you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Matthew Kennedy, and I'm currently in Cleveland, where we have a lot of snow that I can send your way. No problem. Yeah. So let's see. I started modeling, 2011, I think, maybe, 2010, physics, advanced chemistry, do bio, so I'm actually a leader for biology, and totally all in on the AMTA modeling instruction pedagogy, so that's my slant. Currently, I'm at a private girls school called Laurel School, where I actually teach mathematics and co-lead the STEM research department at our school. So that's, yeah. And we have a lot of modelers at Laurel. There are 6, I think, that have been through 3-week instruction plus advanced. So it's quite a lot of people.
Oh wow, that's great.
Which is really nice, from middle school all the way through high school.
All right, and then for those of you, if you don't think you're ever going to be camera ready, or you're not in an environment where you can unmute yourself if you got a lot of background noise going on, feel free to use the chat feature. I've got it open on my screen, and we'll try to make sure that we get to your comments and add your comments in when we do the group process.
Right.
All right. Let's see. Wendy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, let's do this for a bit.
Well,
I did something wrong. Did I?
You took control,
I
Wendy.
took control. I'm sorry. I just wanted to put
Ooh, we can see your email.
It used to be, you could, I don't know.
Yeah, I thought I could show my face, but so my name is Wendy. I am the workshop coordinator. I am in Phoenix, where we do not have snow, where we have a nice balmy 70 plus. And that's our reward for surviving the summers at 120.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think Arizona ever gets to 70. I've been out there. It doesn't get to 70.
Oh, we can have some frost. Not often, but
it's nice being funny because I'm out there in July.
Yes, it's so nice and toasty.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. It's at 5:03. Do we have anybody that would like to chime in and say hello before we do get started?
Don't be shy. Hello, everybody. I think that's a no.
Maybe.
Okay.
Hi. Hello, this is Jean. I'm from Boston, so yeah, I just survived from the snowstorms for many times. I participated my first modeling workshop a few years ago when I was in New York. Currently, I'm not the teacher, but I'm doing curriculum design at an IT company, but I'm trying to I think it's still very important to use scientific reasoning and modeling into computer science education. So that's it. Thank you.
That's great.
That's amazing. Wonderful. Well, we're glad you're here, and thanks for chiming in.
Oh yes, thank you.
All right. So let's light the fires or kick the tires and light the fires. Here we go. So Actually, let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Here we go. All right, a couple quick things. This is going to be an interactive webinar series, so we do want to hear from you. It always, just like it does in your modeling classroom, life goes so much better when you have participating students that engage with you as you go through a discussion. So familiarize yourself with the controls of GoToMeeting. See if you can figure out how to mute and unmute yourself. You can activate your webcam and share your smile with us if you'd like. If not, no worries, or also please use the chat feature. We put these little turquoise starbursts in here, and these are a little hint for you. So when you see these little turquoise starbursts as we go through this presentation, that's the part where we're going to want input from you, from our listeners here. So when you see those turquoise starbursts, feel free to unmute yourself and just jump on in. Okay. So, scientific reasoning, woohoo, big buzzword. Everybody on the call, taking a look from your registration information, we all have some connection to science education. And as part of the NGSS and the Next Generation Science Standards, we are familiar with these 8 practices of science and engineering that the framework identifies, which are essential for all students to learn. And the amazing thing is these all sound beautiful, great things to integrate into your classroom. So what do we need scientific reasoning for? Well, scientific reasoning and reasoning strategies are what your students use to actually make sense of what it is that they're learning in your classroom and to make the change in how they process the new information that they're learning. So as they're going through these 8 practices of asking questions, developing, planning, they're utilizing those reasoning strategies to actually establish and construct new knowledge. All right, so in your classroom, part of being in a science classroom is actually going through and conducting scientific investigations. So this little graphic on here, most of us in our classroom, we start a topic or a lab by posing a question, giving the kids a demonstration for them to make some observations. Then they move into asking more questions. Well, why is this happening? Well, what's happening? Maybe they do some research, they start to collaborate a little bit, then they design their own experiment. Then they take the data from the experiment that they've done and they analyze their data, and then maybe you come back together as a whole class and do a group discussion. Okay, well, what did we learn? Why did we learn this? Why did this happen? Well, these are all part of every single science classroom, and yet they also all utilize reasoning strategies. I'm getting tongue-tied here. So let's look a little bit more into what reasoning is and how it's different from scientific inquiry. And Matthew, if you have anything you want to add, feel free to just chime in at any time.
Okay.
So we have a little example for you. Both Matthew and I have a big background in biology, and so I picked an example from life science. But let's say you want to teach a lesson looking at the metabolic rate of water fleas, which are called Daphnia. And these, for those non-life science people, these are little bugs that you see in the water. So there's a picture of them here. They're about the size of like a dime, maybe half the size of a dime. Here's a drawing or a diagram of a Daphnia, and then you get these, and they're actually alive in water. And then the kids can look at them underneath a stereoscope, and they can see, and this is what they see when they look at them under the stereoscope. They can see this is their heart beating, which is to the right of the little black pointer. And then over here to the left of the black pointer, you can see their legs moving. So that's what the kids see when they look at them under the microscope. Or excuse me, the stereoscope. So you want to do a lesson on the metabolic rate of these water Daphnia. But we also want to take a look and see what kind of reasoning we're going to solicit from our kids based off of how we choose to have them investigate the metabolic rate of these daphnia. So take a minute and find your unmute button. Okay, and we're going to give you 4 different procedures. And I know there's a lot of words on here, and I'll explain why there's a whole lot of words on here in a little bit, but just take a minute, read through these different procedures, and we're going to collaborate and come up with some different types of reasoning skills that you think your students are going to learn based off of which procedure you select.
Take it back.
Okay, so anybody, let's take a look at procedure A. What's the first thing that comes to your mind as a classroom teacher if you choose to pursue procedure A with your students?
Well, I'll get the ball rolling. It seems a little bit directive, but still a little bit open-ended. So it's going to allow, I think, students to, maybe more inexperienced students, to be able to maneuver through the experiment, but then also start being able to think about what they're doing and what it means. But it looks slightly directed to me.
Okay.
Quantitative reasoning. Yeah.
Hi, this is Teresa. I'll jump in
Great.
and just say that I think A looks like something that would be appropriate to do very early in the year when you're still trying to get make sure that students have the skills they need to collect data, to make a graph, and so forth. So that would, because it's directed, it will work well early in the year, but later in the year, I think it would be too much pulling.
Okay. Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay, let's move down to option or procedure B. Do you notice any similarities or differences between procedures A and procedures B?
This is Sue. What I notice is that in A, they're going to expect to get a relationship, a trend, and in B, you've left the question open that there might not be one.
Yeah. So that we're still looking at a single variable, which is the temperature on heartbeat, right? But in one, you're given 3 specific temperatures and not really being told why, and the other, they get to explore a range of temperatures on their own. That's what I see.
Larry, looks like in B, it's non-cookbook, and students have to write their own procedures and plan an experimental design in part B, whereas they really didn't have to do that in A.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's take a look. Let's compare procedure A now with procedure C.
Larry, again, it looks like A, like I was saying, might be cookbook, and B, more like guided inquiry, what we used to call that. A lot of teacher direction in A, less in B.
And this is Sue again. C is an old-fashioned verification lab, like it used to always be.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. It's a verification lab. It completely takes away the student's opportunity to discover something, even if it is rather directed, or their curiosity. It makes it where the teachers it's the focus is back on the teacher disseminating information as opposed to students kind of figuring something out, I think.
All right. So let's take a look now. Let's compare procedure A with procedure D. And just in case you weren't aware, because I had to look it up too, but the dexedrine solution, dexedrine is a stimulant for the central nervous system. I had to Google that one.
You lead such a sheltered life, Chantel.
E looks like open inquiry.
D looks like open inquiry. Okay. Can you expand a little bit on that, Larry?
Students have to generate some of their own questions, so it looks like it, and develop the experimental design. Search for quantitative relationships, so they're going to have to identify variables and constants and devise an experiment and figure out how to make measurements and what range of data for each variable to deal with. Looks like a doctoral project.
Right?
Yeah, it's good.
All right. Are there any other final thoughts on this slide?
I think that I piggyback on Larry and Teresa, what everybody else has said. I think that depending on what level of student you have and where you are in the year, you might be at A or B or at D, hopefully not at C, but and it kind of depends on where you are, what kind of storyline you're trying to develop, and what you're trying to get your kids to be able to do, and how much level of critical thinking and scientific reasoning we're asking them to work out.
Absolutely. All right. We'll go back to our trusty little presenter view here. Okay, so we got some good notes here from everybody on the different types of skills that students are going to engage in based off of which procedure they're going to use in the classroom. But let's talk more about what scientific reasoning actually is and how reasoning plays a part in what you do in your classroom every day. So the big person that we're going to talk about tonight is a science education researcher by the name of Anton Lawson. And Lawson has done quite a bit of research on this whole topic of reasoning, but specifically student scientific reasoning as it appears in the classroom and the benefits of supporting your students to enhance their scientific reasoning. So looking at the big picture of reasoning, we have two main types that we're going to talk about. So we've got inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. And being a life science person, I like to think of these like one of them, I'm zooming down to look at a cell from an entire organism, and the other one, I'm looking at the cell and zooming out to look at the entire organism. So inductive reasoning, you're going to make,
Sorry.
That's okay. Inductive reasoning, you're going to make generalizations from very specific information. So, for example, your students are covering a unit on cells, and they find out that all cells require energy. Well, they know that energy is needed by a cell. A cell is a living thing, And therefore, using inductive reasoning, they can generalize that all cells require energy. On the flip side of that, deductive reasoning, they're drawing very specific conclusions from very big and generalized principles. So flipping that same situation, you can say that all of life requires energy, and a cell is the smallest unit of life, therefore a cell requires energy. So that's going to be deductive reasoning. Now, Anton Lawson takes this a step further, and he applies these two types of reasoning to students in science education and identifies them as empirical inductive reasoning and hypothetical deductive reasoning. And it's the exact same as it is with inductive and deductive reasoning, except the difference is with hypothetical deductive reasoning, your students are making very specific conclusions from very big ideas, but they're also taking it a step farther and then generating a possible explanation for their reasoning based off of what they know. So with the energy in the cell example, they can say, okay, well, we know that a cell is the smallest unit of life. All cells require energy. A plant is a living thing. Therefore, a plant needs energy. So I will hypothesize that if I take the energy away from the plant, then the plant will die because it no longer has energy. I'm going to pause here because I know that was a lot of information I just threw at you. Okay. So from those two main types of reasoning, Anton Lawson went through and broke it down even further to talk about more specific types of reasoning, which he identifies as proportional reasoning, probability reasoning, correlational reasoning, and then the control of variables. The amazing thing is you can take one situation, one scenario, and that one scenario will require your students to utilize all of these types of reasoning skills. So if you think back to our explanation or our example with the water daphnia, procedure A, where you are giving the students the different temperatures, you're giving them the tools, and you're giving them the water daphnia, what type of reasoning would you think that your students would be utilizing just from engaging in procedure A?
This is a standards-based grading webinar. You're always free to reassess.
Okay. So
This
with
is Sue.
Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Go ahead. Yeah, hi, Sue.
I was trying to leave room for other people to speak, but I'll jump in again. They definitely need proportional reasoning if they're going to look at what goes on in their graph. They're going to be thinking about correlational reasoning. Is it because the temperature is changing that the heart rate is changing, or is it not? Is it just a, is it a because or not a because? And they don't have to think too much about control of variables, but that might come up if different groups come up with different results. You'd probably end up with a discussion about that.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for chiming in.
Yeah.
Okay, and then thinking about procedure D, where that procedure was the college level or the doctoral level kind of procedure, what type of reasoning do you think you would see your students utilizing if you would have given them procedure D?
Well, I think that I'll jump in.
Okay.
I think that you're using all of these now, right? So you're really fully flushing out the ability to recognize the relationships and interpret them, to be able to think about the probability of the phenomenon you're studying and whether that effect is real or whether the dependent effect that you see really makes sense and is reasonable. Is it really a correlation? Is it causal? How do we control for all the different variables that are going on? In other words, a PhD thesis, right?
Right? Or would be good for an AP class.
Yes.
AP honors level, you never know. Or I bet you could even do it with some of the lower level kiddos, maybe not with live specimens, but hey.
Well, I mean, in the biology modeling curriculum, we get there.
Mm-hmm.
So you do get there. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you that have yet to share your voice with us this evening, you're probably thinking, well, Chantel, Matthew, this sounds fantastic and is all fun and good, but I've got too much going on in my world right now. When I go to school tomorrow, I've got to do a lesson plan, and my lesson plan has to be thoughtful. It has to be driven. It has to include everybody. It has to connect to the real world. How can I possibly add scientific reasoning in with everything that I already have to do? I mean, am I right?
Yeah, and don't forget the learning objectives on the board.
Oh yeah, your learning objectives have to be on the board. I forgot that. So
yeah. Okay.
Those of you that haven't planned it for tomorrow, we're throwing another thing on the fire here for you. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're already doing in your classroom, and maybe just open up your mind to show how you are facilitating scientific reasoning already in your class with your students, and what that actually looks like. All right, so since we do have a limited window of time, to look at a teacher in a classroom is completely, it's a huge topic of conversation. So let's narrow our focus down and look at really what we're concerned about is how kids learn science. So we're going to look at three main topics. The first thing we want to talk about, and start thinking in your head about this because we're going to ask you to unmute here in a little bit. But the first thing we want to look at is your curriculum. So how are you delivering your content to your students? Okay, the next thing we want to look at and discuss with you is your classroom environment. Everybody's favorite, your administrator walks into your classroom tomorrow. What do they see? What are your students doing? What are you doing? And then your pedagogical practices. So what methods and strategies do you use in your classroom to deliver instruction to your students? So keep these things in mind and then get ready, because we're going to ask you to unmute yourself and to join in with your thoughts and feelings. If you want to share your pearly whites, go ahead and open up your webcam. We'd love to see you. So you're going to talk and I'm going to type, and we're going to kind of do a little collaborative discussion of a whiteboard, and I'll put it on here for you.
I love the fact that it wouldn't be an AMTA webinar without a whiteboard. So
I know, right?
I like that. Makes me feel at home.
It does, doesn't it? All right, so let's take a look at the curriculum. How do you deliver your content to your students?
So please, take it to, jump in, shout stuff out so we can get a few things down. That'd be really wonderful, because I think one of the best things about these webinars I've always found is the discussions that happen and learning from each other, right? So please don't be shy. All right, I've got a 14-sided die. I have assigned everybody a number, and I'm going to roll the dice and call on somebody. Oh, come on. Well, for me, I do very limited. I do very limited direct instruction, right?
Okay.
So it's start with really, and it's not really. We have a conversation about a topic that we're interested in, and start to ask some questions of how you think they might be related, or what's really going on. And the story that I'm trying to get them to get to is to actually come up with maybe the investigation that I want them to really do, but they want them to get there on their own. Um, and so then that leads to some type of exploration, investigation, where they discover some relationships, or maybe not. Right. So that's usually how I start. Anybody else? What about you, Chantel?
Well, I'm gonna put on here. I'm gonna kind of cheat and take one that's kind of an easy one, but I'm gonna put on here the modeling cycles.
Well, that's what I was trying to say without saying the modeling cycles. But hey, I got it. You go for it.
So the modeling cycles, the way that we present the material to our students in a modeling classroom is set up with the modeling cycles. We've got model construction, model refinement, and model deployment, and that's how the curriculum is delivered to students. And oh, we just got a comment from Jenna. She said she starts each unit with a paradigm lab to get
There you go.
thinking about the main ideas of the unit. Awesome. Okay,
Great.
so I'll put modeling cycles, and then I'm going to put paradigm lab. Thank you, Jenna, for sharing.
This is Sue. I'll jump in that particularly in my chemistry class, it's very much a spiral curriculum in that we talk about something and then we'll go away from it and then bring it back in another context and add to it so that the models build in layers. Things like energy, the cross-cutting things just keep coming back and back and back, and you're adding a layer. So we get 2 or 3 spirals of some core content.
Yeah, I know. I like to call that kind of looking forward and pulling from back, right? So looking forward, so you introduce something where you know that you're laying the groundwork for what's coming later, and then when you get there, you can always fold back and pull it up to talk about it again. I love that about the modeling cycles with all the models. It's really fun.
All right, so let's take a look now. This one's my favorite, is the classroom environment. So an administrator walks into your classroom tomorrow. What is it that they are going to see?
Hopefully
probably not what they saw before. Sorry.
No worries. No, I think it's hard to distill it into a couple of words. But I feel like if somebody walks into my class, well, tomorrow's not a good example because we have exams coming up. But typically, they're going to be in groups, and their conversation is going to be directed first toward each other rather than everybody looking at me and waiting for me to confirm a right or a wrong answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Sometimes when they're busy bees, I would call it controlled chaos because they're all working and trying to figure stuff out. And then might be, okay, so we have the group discussions and classroom discussions. So this discourse about on whiteboards about what they think is going on and why, and going back and forth to try to come up with a consensus and an understanding of what they think is happening, which I think is fantastic. So you're doing a lot less of that. You're just kind of on the side, keeping the conversation going in the general direction, but they're really the ones directing it. That's usually what my administrators, when they come, they remark that it's like the kids are really the ones who are running the show, which I think is fantastic. At least that's what it looks like, which I like.
We've got some good chats that came through. So Tracy said I'm assuming in her classroom, administrators are going to see respect, especially towards each other and other students' ideas. I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
David says a bunch of kids writing exams. All right, and then Robbie says that try to get students to gain interest by asking them to consider what fascinates them about the subject. That is really, really helpful. Trying videos and images, but it still feels forced. Yep. Trying to find a way to access their curiosity. That is really good thing to have in your classroom environment.
And depending on your group and in any given year, it can either be incredibly easy because they're ready to go, or it can be really difficult.
Yep.
Because they're just not into it, or they just don't want to be, or quite frankly, I mean, we've really kind of flipped the model on them, or in that it's not just we disseminate information that they memorize and regurgitate back, as opposed to we want them to actually do the learning and the thinking and to figure it out and to be able to explain it. It's a very different type of learning that maybe some students aren't that accustomed to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Any others for classroom environment? Okay. How about pedagogy or pedagogical practices? If someone were to come up to you and say, "Hey, what pedagogical practice do you use in your classroom, or what pedagogy do you connect with?" What would you respond?
This is Sue. I would respond, keep changing, keep finding what works. I have a group this year that is really bad at large group discussion, and we found lots of ways of doing discussion boards and silent chalk talks to keep the productive talk going, but without them opening their mouths. You have to keep finding something that works for a particular group. Be open to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Absolutely. And then Robbie chimed in on chat and said heavy formative assessment. I've got to step away for 2 seconds real quick. I'll be right back.
For me personally, I really like modeling instruction, and so that's the basis of the pedagogy that I use. I add things, change things around, rearrange sequence and storylines, but for me, ultimately, the pedagogy is modeling instruction. I was a research scientist for many, many years before I had a second career decision and became a teacher. And for me, just the way modeling does science in learning in the classroom is very similar to actually how I did science as a scientist. And so I really like that that modeling learning cycle a lot. And so I like that pedagogy. And so for me, that's always the framework that I build upon for how I teach.
All right. Lenny had a question. I think it was Sue that mentioned the chalk talks or silent chalk talks. I'm assuming that's a question to elaborate more on what is a silent chalk talk.
Yeah. Sure, I can do that. Works great with the big whiteboards that modeling uses, but you can use any surface. You have a question that you want students to discuss. I usually have them start with a sticky note in which they write their response. Everybody has a different color. You put them in about groups of 4. They put their responses on the whiteboard. Sometimes there's 2 responses that they're writing. And then once those responses are up, they pick up markers or if I'm working on my big lab benches, they pick up chalk, and they write comments. They connect other kids' comments. They write questions. They say that they agree. They provide reasoning on why they would disagree. But all the talking is done by writing instead of talking, and each kid has their own color. You then finish it up with sometimes a gallery walk where students get to briefly look at one or two other boards, and then bring it to a group discussion where people provide takeaways, or they are willing to talk about what somebody else wrote, even if they aren't willing to talk about what they wrote. But they'll say a lot. I have a couple of groups. My bright sophomore girls who are afraid to be wrong, they are not as hesitant to put their opinions down on paper when they would never, ever, ever open their mouths in class. So that's a chalk talk.
Okay. Great.
Great,
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. And then David posted about spontaneous formative assessments with multiple choice on fingers. So like 1, 2, 3 with the think, pair, share. So David, I'm assuming that's kind of, you put up a question, they have multiple choice, and they have to hold up the number that corresponds with what answer they think. I'm assuming. That's right.
That's right. Yep, that's what he said. That's right.
Wonderful. All right. Okay, Matthew, are you happy with our little whiteboard we've got here?
Yeah, that's great, and thank you very much for everybody sharing. That's great. I actually learned a couple of new things, and I'm gonna go back and think about how I can incorporate. In particular, the chalk talk. I like that because I've got I work at a girls' school, and I have some that are introverted type students, and I have some that are high flyers that have never been wrong, and so they don't, when they're forced to think, they struggle to be able to speak because they don't want to be wrong. So I really like that idea a lot. I've done the silent gallery walks, but I like incorporating kind of that chalk talk idea beforehand.
That I think I'm gonna have to steal that too. I put a note to myself to do that in my workshop. All right, and then I also like the spiral curriculum. I like that term.
Yeah,
spiral
curriculum. I do too. Thank you.
All right, so we have a whiteboard that has all of the things that we do in our classroom right now. But now let's take a look at what the research says about scientific reasoning. All right, so in terms of curriculum and how curriculum is delivered to your students, there is a lot of research out there about the impact of using things called learning cycles, which I connected to the spiral curriculum that Sue had mentioned earlier. And there's a couple different types of learning cycles that are out there. The founder, the godfather of learning cycles, is a science ed researcher by the name of Robert Karplus.
Yep. And
he came up with his in 1977. And then a little bit of a backstory. Karplus had a student by the name of Anton Lawson. And then Anton Lawson had a student by the name of Malcolm Wells. And Malcolm Wells is who took the learning cycles from Anton Lawson and applied them to modeling instruction, and hence modeling cycles were born. So little connection for you guys there, a little history story.
Gotta love the academic pedigree.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But with learning cycles, what's really popular right now, and I keep seeing it everywhere, is the 5E. And that's another form of the learning cycle. So the learning cycles came first, and then I think it's Bransford, Brown, and Cocking came up with their identified it and branded it as the 5Es. Right. But there's a lot of research on how helpful a cyclical type of curriculum is for students developing scientific reasoning. And also, those of us that are using modeling instruction in our classroom, using models as a tool for thinking supports students to develop scientific reasoning. In the classroom environment, so using teaching strategies such as active learning, cooperative learning, and student discourse whiteboarding, and sense making. Now, we touched on this a little bit about how we get the kids to work together in groups, and that's great. You have students actively engaged and working cooperatively in small groups, but we've all been there where we're walking around the classroom checking on our student groups as they're working, and you hear that the discourse is not necessarily what it needs to be in order to really facilitate scientific reasoning. So Matthew and I had a big discussion about this, and we wanted to make sure that we called out student discourse, whiteboarding, and sense making as 3 separate topics and factors in your classroom environment that impact scientific reasoning. And then Matthew, you want to chat more about that?
So that, because that's exactly what I think that's really the cornerstone of modeling instruction and in the modeling cycles is this student discourse using whiteboards, and they're doing their own sense making of what's going on. So those 3 facets that are really critical in the classroom environment for developing scientific reasoning, because that's where the students are stretching themselves and really pushing to become better at making sense, better at being able to describe their understanding, and being able to demonstrate it to others on a whiteboard and through discussions is really the hallmark of what makes modeling instruction so powerful. And that folds right back into goes all the way back to Bob Karplus in the learning cycles, is that's so critically important. And I just don't think that without it, our students really do, they might learn some things and they might be able to do some basic thinking, but I've always found that that's the most important part for true scientific reasoning. And as a research scientist who had a lot of graduate students and postdocs in my lab, those 3 topics, those 3 abilities, to be able to engage in discourse, be able to demonstrate very quickly with simple models on a whiteboard or on some space, and be able to do sense making with each other, are really the hallmark of true scientific reasoning. And I love the fact that it's really kind of the cornerstone of what modeling instruction is really all about. So
well said.
Clearly it resonates with me. Let's put it that way. We'll
all
go
right,
with that.
and then, exactly. And then pedagogical practices. So we have talked about modeling instruction, but also inquiry instruction. Now, what I wanted to call out and bring your attention to this evening is there's a lot of research out there on the effectiveness of student scientific reasoning in inquiry instruction classrooms. However, what the other amazing piece is a lot of these articles that are published now, not only are they looking at inquiry strategies, but they're looking at inquiry strategies in connection with elements from these other categories of curriculum or of the classroom environment. So I thought that was neat because when you look at modeling instruction, you look at this entire slide and it's like, well, we do all of this just in one pedagogical practice. So that's pretty neat. All right.
Before you move off this slide, Chantel, I just would like to point out, if you could go back, there you go, thank you very much. At the end of this slide set are all these references, and this one slide to me is just a beautiful representation of places to go if you want to look at some literature, which is really great literature to dig in more deeply, because she's listed, we listed under like learning cycles, so the Karplus 77 paper and the Lawson paper, or specific papers about whiteboarding or student discourse. And it's a great jumping off point if you wanted to dive deeper into a very specific aspect of scientific research on scientific reasoning. And I think it's I love it. So there you go.
Well,
move forward now.
These are the big players. I've got even more if you all really want some more. I know.
Yeah, absolutely. We could give you enough reading material that you would never actually do any work for your classes. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. So Chantel and Matthew, this is great. I'm totally want to take a temperature of my students and how they're developing scientific reasoning. How do I do that? Well, I'm so glad you asked. As a member to the American Modeling Teachers Association, you have access to the instrument called the Lawson Classroom Test of Scientific Reasoning. It's abbreviated, it's referred to as the LCTSR, and this is a multiple choice assessment. He went through a lot of different revisions as he was writing this, and the revision that you have access to is multiple choice. So to access it, you just go to modelinginstruction.org. You're going to sign in under your members login, and if you can either click on the tab that says resources, or you can do a quick search using the keyword of reasoning, and it's going to pop up and look something like this. Now, when you go all the way down to the bottom, you see where it says attachments. And you're going to download the attachments, and the attachments are actually in a zip file. And when you open up the attachment file, they're going to be password protected to protect the integrity of the instrument. But you also get access to a Word document that gives you the password so that you can unlock it and view it. But we want to make sure we're holding up the integrity of the instrument.
And there are some instructions on the main page on how to try to keep and maintain the integrity of the instrument that the authors ask you to follow.
Yes. And the LCTSR is a 24-question multiple choice assessment, and it's content independent. So it doesn't matter if you teach physics, environmental science, earth science, geography, or biology. You can give it to any class.
And any grade, as a matter of fact, because there's a tremendous amount of data that's been collected as to what the score bands are depending on the age bracket of the students. And the 24 multiple choice paired reasoning test is designed specifically for students in grades, it's like 8 through 12. He has other ones for college, but the one that's on the AMTA website is specifically geared for high school.
And those of you that are life science, he also has it. He also has an instrument called the BASCS, which is for biology specific, but it measures reasoning and biology content. So those questions are more specific.
Wendy pointed out, excuse me, Chantel, sorry. So Wendy pointed out that you can use the Lawson's test all the way down to the middle school, which is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then Robbie asked a question, do you know of any schools which use it longitudinally, charting progress across the entire high school curriculum? Robbie, I wish I did, because I think I would be a lot farther on in my research if they did have it. So far, the people that I know that are using it are modelers. I'm not aware of any high school specifically that uses it across like grades 9 through 12 in every single science. I could be wrong. Oh, and Wendy just said you can ask Jane Jackson, and her email address is here in the chat room, but she might know of one, and that's a good question, Wendy. Thank you. I will follow up with her as well. All right, so there are a couple other instruments to measure reasoning, and as far as I can tell, they are not available for public use, but I am forever a student, so I know that I only know that much in this world, so if any of you know of any that are out there, I'd be anxious to hear more about them. One of them is called the Inquiry for Scientific Thinking and Reasoning. It's called the iStar, and this was actually written in an affiliation with the Ohio State University, and it was modified from the Lawson Classroom Test of Scientific Reasoning. I went ahead and I still put the link on this PowerPoint slide because their website has some amazing information about the benefits of assessing scientific reasoning, and they go into a little bit more detail about how the questions were written in order to make sure that they are valid and reliable questions for assessing reasoning skills. It's a great website.
It's a great website.
Yeah, it's very, very good website. Also, if you need some more reading, this article by Weld, Steer, and McNewbaron, the 2011 article, this is a whole paper that's written specifically comparing different types of scientific reasoning instruments. And you can see I went ahead and listed them here for you, but I was not able to find them just by plugging in a Google search or through my university library so that I could post them here for you. So I just listed them here as well. But the Weld paper goes into the benefits and the similarities and differences and the benefits in using each different instrument. So those are there for you as well. All right.
Any final
I think I've run out of things to say.
Question.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe it would be if you could just scroll quickly through the last couple pages because it shows the references themselves. So they'll have access to the recording, correct, which includes the slide set. So if you ever want to go to them, yeah. So you can see there are several pages have the reference and the web addresses to be able to find the information, which are really great.
Most of these articles are available on Google Scholar. So, and of course, you can always email me. I'd be happy to share them too. They're going to be full of notes, but
yeah. Or I might be as well. I have a whole bunch of many of these and others as well. So we both, between the two of us, we could flood you with a tremendous amount of information that you might want.
Well, and on the public AMTA website, there's also a tab with all different resources, and some
Correct.
of them are on there and some are not. Correct,
absolutely.
Oh, yes, you're right, Jane, or not Jane. You're right, Wendy, they are there.
Yep.
I just wrote myself a post-it note to email Jane and Robbie about the longitudinal Lawson test. I'm thinking, I've got Jane on my mind.
I'm getting a lot of feedback. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Chantel and Wendy.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, everybody, for spending an hour with us. It was very nice, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you both. It was interesting.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Teresa, for participating.
Thank you.
And there's another person in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and if Sue's still on here, I know Sue from our distance learning class. Hi, Sue.
Hello. Yes.
Yes.
We got back to school today. It was good. Yeah. We had snow day yesterday.
All right. Sue, I feel very special that you not only did you sit in front of your computer last night for the online class, but you sat in again tonight for our presentation. So thank you.
Well, I picked up some good stuff. Thank you.
Oh, good.
As did we.
All right.
Well, the sun must be going down. You're not so blue, Chantel.
Well, I've also got the white background on my.
Okay.
Not glowing blue on my face.